I'm Sue Herrera, and I'm here with our third installment of our principal series. The topic today is teacher evaluations and growth plans. And I'm going to start just by telling you a little bit about myself. I am the Director of Instructional Development and a consultant for Step Up. I am recently retired after 37 years and bring with me a bunch of experience in education, 11 years as a principal, instructional coach, and also the bulk of my time was in the classroom as a second, third, fourth, and fifth grade teacher. I've had experience in rural, urban, and suburban communities. I'm a champion of students, and I love to mentor new leaders. Those little faces on the screen are my grandchildren, and one of the many reasons I chose to leave public education and work for Step Up. I want to talk to you about the season of growth plans and evaluations. September's the time that we meet with teachers and we start talking to them about what are your goals for this year and how can I help you reach those goals. It's also the time that often central office begins looking at the state assessment scores and looking at the effectiveness of educators and tasks building leaders, instructional leaders, with the job of ensuring that the teachers we have in classrooms in front of our scholars are the best they can be. And so I want to share my philosophy and perception about teacher evaluation and that whole process. I have some takeaways after my time in education. You know, I lead with a servant heart. I really feel like as instructional leaders, we are there to change the lives not only of our scholars, but of our teachers as well. I believe that this is a sequential process, that there's steps in a longer procedure with evaluations. It is not one meeting in September and then you don't think about it again until March. No matter how busy things get, the growth plan model requires that principals spend quality time with each teacher. I believe in personalized feedback and support, that it's essential for growth, that no one really wins if our teachers feel disrespected. And so as we are giving feedback, we need to be thinking about that whole coaching model that we all know so well and employ those characteristics. You know, no one begins as a master teacher. We often like to evaluate our first and second year teachers as if they are veteran teachers. And, you know, I'm so glad that no one evaluated me harshly my first couple of years, or I wouldn't have had the long career that I have. It really was through coaching and peer mentoring that I was able to grow into a quality educator. So we want to make sure that we understand our job is to move our educators from good to great. You know, when others are ready to give up on a teacher, that's when I feel like you need to lean in hardest with your coaching. You know, sometimes teachers get moved from principal to principal, and the hope is that the last principal they end up with will be the one that's able to coach them out. Sadly, that's when I want to coach them up. If a teacher can show me that they have the will to improve, I'm going to make sure I give them the skill to improve. The true mark of a transformative leader is the number of teachers that you move along the continuum in a positive way. And don't forget to help your very best and your very brightest teachers to continue to grow. No one should be done growing no matter how great they are and how long they've been in education. And so that's the task. You know, we've got our growth guides on DESE. I'm sure we've all seen the growth guides. We know where they live under teacher evaluations. And, you know, the way you always know that you're in a growth guide is that really nice lady that's on every single document at DESE, right? There she is. I print these growth guides for my teachers, even though I know that you can have them digitally, because I think teachers benefit from being able to highlight and circle where they are on the continuum. So I just point this out to say, probably need to get this in front of your teachers. If you don't have it paper copy in front of them, at least digitally. I believed it was very important to meet with every single teacher one-on-one for at least 30 minutes. And so I allocated time and sometimes substitute pay in my budget to be able to allow for teachers to have uninterrupted 30 minutes with me in September. So I would block off the calendar 2 or 3 days. I would sequester myself in the conference room or in the library or in my office. And I would have educators come in and meet with me one at a time, because there's going to be varying degrees of needs when you're setting up growth plans with your teachers. You're going to have teachers that are brand new that have never done the process before that are going to need a lot of help. You're going to have teachers that struggled the year before that you perhaps have set or earmarked priorities for them. And so that's going to be a reminder conversation. It's going to be digging back in to the disappointments from last year and helping them find that sense of pride and positivity and that growth mindset for this school year. And then you're going to have your teachers that are already really, they're solid, they're good teachers, and you want to see them move on the continuum. And so that is a different challenge. Grouping them all together for one meeting is not effective. So I encourage you to find ways in your schedule and in your budget to allow for your teachers to meet with you. I've made it happen without getting a substitute. I just looked at everyone's plan time and gave them options for a solid week for them to sign up. You can make it happen if it's a priority. So I would have a slideshow that I shared with them, and I'd go through the slideshow. Our goals and the way we had teachers choose things, a lot of the decision making was done for them. There was a district goal, a building goal, and then they got a personal goal. I just want to walk you through the process of what it sounds like when you're helping teachers establish their baseline. So last year, our focus was academic language 1.1. So I took a screenshot of this baseline scale, the continuum from 0 to 7. And you don't ever want to have a teacher come in and sit across from you and without even looking and reading the characteristics and attributes, say to them, where do you think you fall on the scale? Or worse yet, you say to them, you're a 3. It needs to be a collaborative discussion. And I always start on emerging, no matter if they're a first year or 12th year. We always start on emerging. We read through all of the descriptions, but we really hone in and focus on evidence of practice and evidence of impact. And so I will say to a teacher, yes, I know that you communicate the meaning of academic language. I've seen evidence in your practices for the last couple of years. I know that you accurately use content knowledge in your vocabulary, but are your students generally familiar with academic language? And how do you know? What's your evidence? We have a discussion. We either decide to stay in this area and we decide if we are at the very baseline, in the middle, or at the end, almost tipping to the next category. If they feel absolutely and can provide evidence of this, then we read this one. We incorporate academic language into learning activities. Instruction indicates appreciation of the complexity and ever-evolving nature of the content, but this is what really separates some teachers from others. Students are able to use academic language. What's your evidence? Are you going to take this evidence from their writing? Are you going to take it from their collaborative conversations that they're having with their peers? Are you going to take it when you're calling on kids and you're going to take data of that? How do we know? Where's the proof? And then one step further, students accurately use academic language related to a discipline. So science specific, math specific, writing specific, etc. So once you've decided where you are on this continuum, then what I usually do is I show them the evidence, because that's in DESE as well. You can show them, okay, what are your possible sources? And we read through these and we highlight some of these for the teacher because we want them to be able to collect evidence. But then I help them write their SMART goal. And we always start with the end in mind. So by March 2023 is what we were writing this time last year. Students are able to use, so this would be a teacher that was a 2 or a 3. Students are able to use academic language as evidenced by. Whatever you choose to put after this phrase is fine, but there has to be evidence. And there has to be a way that teachers know they're going to collect the evidence. So these are all conversations you want to have with them individually because it's going to sound different for every teacher. Why is this important? Because teachers are often very confused about the growth plan writing, the growth plan process, their SMART goal, how they're going to collect evidence. It's also important because as the principal, I always had a spreadsheet where I was keeping track of every educator, what standards we were working on, and what was their baseline. And I began to see on the growth plans that they got to choose on their own that I'd have 3 or 4 people that chose 3.1, which is curriculum implementation. because we were implementing a new math series. And so I would be mindful of that. And I would think, okay, let's put those 5 teachers together at a PD session because they have the same growth goal. And let's have them unpack that curriculum. If I had people that chose, I think it was like 7 point something, it was on data, notebooks, and children being, assessment capable learners, then I would want to put those educators together, create a little cohort, and have them support each other in that journey. That's the beauty of meeting with every single teacher and keeping track of what they're focusing on, because then your professional development plan can guide their learning and can guide what your plans are for the year when it comes to staff development. Big thing I want you to remember is that teacher growth is not a gotcha. This is not the place for us to say, oh, you're an ineffective teacher, and I'm going to prove to you that you are through this process. I feel badly even saying that, but unfortunately, we do have situations and pockets where that is the case. And I guess if I were to get on my soapbox now, I would say, we know that the field of education is difficult. I don't think teachers are going into the field of education and getting their certification with blinders on. I think they're very aware of the commitment and the difficulty. If teachers are struggling, but they're showing up to work every day, we as their instructional leaders need to find a way to help them grow and support them. I believe in that tiered approach. I talked about it being a process. It's not one meeting and then you're done. We really have to look at goal setting, which is the growth plan. And then we got to make a PD plan. Our professional development plan was most successful when we could align what we were teaching teachers with their growth plans. That may sound like a no-brainer, but oftentimes that's not the case. Oftentimes you will have professional development goals from the district level that don't really align with what teachers want to do personally. So it really feels connected, focused, and successful when you as the instructional leader can see the trend in the types of standards teachers are choosing to focus on for growth, and you can align your professional development and your peer observations to that growth. And then you've got to ask teachers to implement. So when we talk about academic language, we might have talked about language frames. Putting a frame in front, a sentence starter in front of students that force them to use certain academic language because you're scaffolding that for them. You're guiding them through that until they're able to do it on their own. That's one example of academic language implementation. Word walls is another one, personal ones and ones on the board. Having kids write using academic language, having them highlight or circle or color that academic language. As a teacher, when you're going over your learning goals or I can statements, you are color coding the academic language and what would be most important for the lesson or for that particular unit. And then you're asking teachers to implement, and you're going to be in classrooms observing to watch for that level of implementation. And then you're going to apply low stress feedback. So the feedback is either going to come in an email, a slip of paper where you've got look fors, or you're going to just stop in and talk to the teacher before school, after school, or during the plan time and say, I enjoyed being in your classroom. Let's talk about your word wall over here. Here's some of the things I like about it. Have you considered color coding your different contents so that kids can easily see where the science words are? Have you considered circling your academic language words in your I can statements? Whatever it is, low stress. You save your, I want to raise your level of concern observation feedback for those formal observations that are often attached to the evaluation system. But you want to get in quickly, give low stress feedback, be positive, and then cycle back as soon as you can. Either you or your instructional coach cycling back to check for implementation of PD. I just have to say, if you have your instructional coach go in and circle back for implementation of PD, we all know that's not evaluative. That's not their job. It would just be checking to see if there's any more support that's needed. I put a quote here in Ed Week. It says, a great observation results in a conversation that creates a positive change in teacher performance, because that is the goal. One thing I want you to make sure you keep in mind that I struggled with, I would say, my first couple of years is this last page, this matrix on the last page of your summative evaluation. Oftentimes, we don't take a look at this until March, and we really, really need to be looking at it in September at those beginning meetings with educators. Because if you have a veteran teacher who's been teaching for 7 years in the same grade level, but they have chosen a standard that's new for them, and you go through that continuum, that 0 through 7, and you're reading through the attributes, and together you decide you want to start them at a 3, but they've been teaching for 7 years and they make adequate progress. They go from a 3 to a 4. Look what happens to them at the end of the year. 7 years, they got a rating of a 4. They now are minimally effective. No matter what their student learner outcome data shows, no matter how great their observations were, this is a problem, right? So it's this or, one area of concern or an indicator rating that causes teachers who are veterans who are pretty good to fall in this category. If you as the principal don't look at where they probably should start. I've heard principals say, oh, no one's a 7. No one can be a 6 or 7. I don't know that I believe that. I don't think they can start at a 6 or 7. Or you need to pick a different indicator, something you can grow in, because this is a growth model. But I don't have a problem with a veteran teacher who's a strong veteran teacher chooses something they've never done before, and I start them at a 4. We collaboratively decide you're a strong enough teacher that you have the indicators that say your baseline can be a 4, and then we move them in incremental through the continuum as they show evidence of student and teacher growth. Just be mindful of this. I'm going to end by saying the secret to success as a good leader and good leadership is all about the lives of your team members or workers that you make better. We don't ever want to forget that teaching is a career and someone's livelihood, and that the educators are professionals in our building, and it's our job to mold them into the best educators they can be. And that starts with knowing your educators, spending time getting to know them. It starts with you understanding their strengths and weaknesses, and with providing personalized feedback to that educator. You got to spend time with your teachers one-on-one. You've got to spend time in classrooms. You've got to give that feedback. And you have to build that strong sense of efficacy. Are there outliers in our educational community of teachers that probably need to find another profession? Yes. A couple of years ago, I heard a speaker that said there are 3 types of teachers. There are teachers that are on fire, teachers who have sadly lost their fire, and teachers that need to be fired. And our job is to continue molding those teachers that are on fire so that they can inspire students, help those educators who have lost their fire find that spark again, help them be great again. And for those teachers that probably need to get out of the profession, our job is to determine, do they have the will to improve so that we can give them the skill. Good luck in September. I know that it's a busy month. It's when we feel like we're for real in school. And we've got a lot of systems and procedures we have to walk through. And one of the most important ones is teacher evaluation and growth. Good luck. If you should need me for anything else or want to talk some more about teacher evaluation systems, you can contact me at sueh@stepupconsultingservices.com. Have a great fall.